It was at a friend's dinner party that I saw the riddle of modern wealth laid bare. To my left sat David, sharp, incisive, with a mind like a spreadsheet. He spoke fluently about macroeconomic trends, dissected the Fed's latest policy with surgical precision, and explained, with genuine pity, why now was quite literally the worst time in history to buy real estate. He had models. He had charts. He had a litany of rational, intelligent reasons for why every asset class was either overvalued, risky, or doomed. At 42, he rented a stylish apartment, carried consumer debt, and felt perpetually on the cusp of a breakthrough that required just a little more research. To my right was Mike. Mike wasn't dumb, but he operated on a different frequency. While David deconstructed the 2008 housing crisis, Mike mentioned, almost as an aside, that he'd just closed on his third rental property, a small, outdated condo near the community college. The numbers worked, he shrugged, when asked for his analysis. What numbers? The rent covers the mortgage and gives me $200 a month. The handyman says it needs paint, not plumbing. David immediately launched into a critique of cap rates, interest rate risk, and the burden of being a landlord. Mike listened, nodded, and said, maybe, but it's working so far. Later, over dessert, the conversation turned to side hustles. David had a brilliant, comprehensive concept for a tech-enabled service platform. He'd mapped the customer journey, identified the total addressable market, and even had a name. He'd been refining the business plan for 18 months. The landscape is shifting, he cautioned. I need to be sure. Mike, who'd been quietly eating his cheesecake, mentioned that his wife had started selling homemade dog treats online. She just used that Etsy thing, didn't know how to do SEO or whatever. First month she lost $50. Now it pays our car insurance. She just kept tweaking the recipe and the pictures. The contrast was so stark it was almost comical. Here was David, with his vault of knowledge and his paralysis of insight. And here was Mike, or Mike's wife, who seemed to just do things. They stumbled. They learned. They made what smarter people might call unforced errors. Yet, a quiet accumulation was happening in Mike's world: equity, cash flow, a growing immunity to the whims of a single paycheck. I drove home that night haunted by a question that would become an obsession. Why do the Davids of the world, informed, analytical, intellectually gifted, so often remain on the sidelines of wealth, while the Mikes, ordinary, action-oriented, sometimes seemingly naive, so often end up owning the field? This book is the answer to that question. It is not an attack on intelligence. It is an investigation into a specific, cultural misapplication of intelligence in the realm of building wealth. It's about the hidden tax that being smart can levy on your financial progress, the tax of overthinking, the tariff of perfectionism, the heavy burden of needing to be right before you begin. Why Dummies Make Money is not a guide to acting foolishly. It is a blueprint for recognizing when our own cleverness becomes our cage. It's about the profound power of simplicity, action, and a kind of pragmatic courage that values forward motion over flawless understanding. We will explore the smart person's trap, where analysis becomes an end in itself. We will decode the dummy's advantage, the hidden strengths in starting before you're ready and believing it might just work. And finally, we will map the behaviors that actually bridge the gap between knowing and having. Forget what you think you know about who gets rich and why. The real story is far more surprising, far more liberating, and far more accessible than the financial orthodoxy would have you believe. The dinner party is over. It's time to step out of the conversation and into the game. Turn the page. Your advantage may be simpler than you think. Why Dummies Make Money, How Ordinary People Get Rich While the Smart Ones Stay Broke. Written and published by the Zillion Pro. Chapter 1. The Curse of Analysis Paralysis. Imagine standing at the entrance of the world's largest library, tasked with writing a novel. Instead of entering, you remain in the grand foyer, meticulously studying the library's blueprints. You analyze the Dewey Decimal System, debate the merits of various archival methods, interview librarians about optimal research techniques, and create complex spreadsheets comparing the historical accuracy of different source materials. Years pass. You have become the world's foremost expert on the theory of novel writing in this specific library, but the pages before you remain blank. This is analysis paralysis, the debilitating condition where the pursuit of perfect information becomes a substitute for action, and the smart person's greatest strength, their ability to think, research, and critique, morphs into their ultimate weakness. In the realm of wealth creation, this library isn't made of books. It's built of market data, financial news, cryptocurrency threads, real estate forecasts, business podcasts, and the endless, screaming opinions of experts and algorithms. For the intelligent mind, it's a seductive playground. You can spend a lifetime exploring its corridors, feeling the rush of understanding complex systems, and building elegant mental models of how wealth should work. Meanwhile, outside the library's stained glass windows, people with simpler maps, or no map at all, are already building houses. The anatomy of a standstill analysis paralysis isn't laziness. It's the opposite. It's frantic intellectual activity that goes nowhere. It manifests in several sophisticated disguises. 1. The one more source syndrome, the belief that the next article, the next podcast episode, the next earnings report will contain the final, missing piece of the puzzle. The research phase has no exit strategy. Buying a single stock becomes a doctoral thesis. Investing in a rental property requires mastering macroeconomic cycles, zoning law histories, and plumbing codes. The action is always just over the next informational horizon. 2. The fetish of the optimal. Why settle for a good investment when there might be a perfect one? This mindset rejects viable, profitable paths because they aren't theoretically maximized. It's the reason someone with $10,000 to invest spends 2 years trying to time the stock market's absolute bottom, missing the entire 20% climb in between, while their colleague who set up an automatic monthly buy into an index fund now has $13,000 and hasn't looked at a chart in months. 3. Fear of being a dummy. For people whose identity is tied to being right and appearing smart, the prospect of making a public mistake is terrifying. Better to stay in the realm of critique and theory, where you can always be right in principle, than to step into the arena where you might buy a property that needs a new roof, or launch a product that gets poor reviews. Inaction preserves the pristine, untested potential of their intelligence. For confusion as comfort, subconsciously, the complexity becomes a refuge. This is all so complicated, they sigh, returning to their research. The labyrinth of information provides a legitimate-sounding excuse for why they haven't started. The dummy, untroubled by the labyrinth's existence, simply walks around it. Let's consider this scenario of paralysis of analysis. Paul, a software engineer with a sharp analytical mind, decided in 2016 he wanted to build wealth outside his salary. He fixated on cryptocurrency. Times year 1, he spent hundreds of hours understanding blockchain, proof of work versus proof of stake, and the histories of Bitcoin and Ethereum. He joined forums, debated tokenomics, and set up elaborate watch lists. Times year 2, he paper traded. He built a complex spreadsheet to track correlations and backtest trading strategies. He could explain the intricacies of hard forks and decentralized finance with professorial clarity. Times year 3, he was still researching. The market had its famous boom and bust cycles. Friends who had simply bought small amounts of Bitcoin and Ethereum early on, who didn't understand half of what Paul did, had seen life-changing gains, and some losses, learning through real experience. Paul's portfolio remained a beautifully formatted spreadsheet of hypothetical transactions. His knowledge was immense. His real-world position was zero. He had become a spectator in the very game he had mastered in theory. The dummies bypass the 70% rule. The action-oriented person operates on a different principle. We'll call it the 70% rule. When the smart person feels they need 95 to 100% of the information to act confidently, the dummy acts when they have about 70%. They understand that, 1. The final 30% of information is the most time-consuming and costly to acquire. 2. The critical learning doesn't happen in the planning stage, but in the doing stage. 3. A good plan executed now is better than a perfect plan executed never, or too late. The dummy doesn't dive in blind. They gather enough information to avoid catastrophic, obvious pitfalls, the 70%. They identify the first, smallest, least risky step. Then they take it. The resulting real-world feedback, actual data, not theoretical data, then informs their next move. Their education is paid for, not by hours of scrolling, but by the productive friction of reality. Breaking the curse from analyst to actor. If you see yourself in Paul, or in the library and forever studying blueprints, here is your path out. 1. Define a minimum viable action, MVA. For any goal, identify the absolute smallest, concrete step you can take in the next 48 hours. Not research real estate, but call one local property manager and ask what a typical 2-bedroom condo in X area rents for. The MVA produces a specific, real-world data point and creates momentum. 2. Set a research deadline. Give yourself a strict, immovable time box. I have 1 week to research index funds. At 5 p.m. on Friday, I am transferring $500 and setting up an automatic investment plan. The deadline forces synthesis and decision. 3. Embrace the good enough for now decision. Acknowledge that you will never have all the information. Make the best decision you can with what you have, with a commitment to adapt. Say it aloud, this is good enough for now. I will learn the rest by doing. 4. Reframe failure as data. Detach your ego from the outcome. If your action leads to a suboptimal result, it is not proof of your stupidity. It is simply the most valuable data you could have acquired, data that is now yours, that no theoretical researcher possesses. It is paid tuition. The wisdom of the blank page. The novelist ultimately learns that the library, for all its wonders, is a distraction from the essential act, putting one word after another on the page. The first words will be clumsy, the first draft will be flawed, but it will exist. It can be edited, improved, and built upon. Wealth is built the same way. It is not architected in a single, brilliant flash of planning. It is written through a series of actions, deposits, purchases, conversations, launches. Each action, however small, is a sentence in your financial story. Analysis paralysis is the fear of writing a bad sentence, and so you never write the book. The cure is to pick up the pen, to accept that your first investment might not be optimal, your first business idea might need pivoting, your first property might have a leaky faucet. This is not the mark of a dummy, it is the authentic, unavoidable, and infinitely more productive path of the learner, the one who is rich not just in potential, but in progress. Your 70% move right now. Identify one financial or wealth-building goal. What is the smallest, single action you could take in the next 2 days that would move you from pure analysis into the realm of real-world action? Write it down. Then, in the margin of this page, write the date you will complete it by. The library will still be there tomorrow, but the opportunity to own a piece of the land it sits on might not. Chapter 2: The Ego of Complexity. In a small town, 2 people set out to grow a money tree. The first, a brilliant botanist, studied arboreal genetics, soil micronutrients, and celestial pruning cycles. He designed an intricate irrigation system powered by solar panels and connected to a weather prediction algorithm. He wrote a 50-page manifesto on optimal photosynthesis optimization, OPO. The setup was dazzling, a testament to his intellect. But he was so consumed with calibrating the system that he never actually planted a seed. The second person knew little of botany. He found a healthy-looking sapling from a local nursery, asked the owner where to plant it and how often to water it, and put it in the ground. Every day, he watered it. He pulled weeds. It wasn't glamorous. It was simple, repetitive work. A year later, the botanist's plot was a museum of advanced, idle technology. The gardener's plot held a young, thriving tree. This is the ego of complexity, the deep-seated belief that if a path to wealth is simple, accessible, or common, it cannot be worthy of a sophisticated mind. True success, the ego whispers, must be arrived at through a proprietary, intricate process that others are too dull to comprehend. This chapter isn't about complex strategies that work, it's about the pursuit of complexity for its own sake, as a badge of intelligence, a gatekeeper of exclusivity, and ultimately, a spectacular way to do nothing. The lure of the secret handshake. For the intellectually proud, widely known wealth-building strategies feel vulgar. The idea that something as mundane as spend less than you earn and invest the difference in a low-cost index fund for 30 years could be the answer is insulting. It offers no opportunity for cleverness. There's no secret to learn, no alpha to generate, no way to outsmart the masses. It's a treadmill anyone can walk on. Thus, the smart person goes searching for the financial equivalent of a secret handshake. They are drawn to times derivatives and day trading. Why own the boring, long-term company when you can make leveraged bets on its short-term volatility using option strategies with names like Iron Condor or Butterfly Spread? The language itself is a barrier to entry, making the practitioner feel initiated. Times obscure asset classes, cryptocurrency shards, fractionalized art investing, distressed debt in emerging markets. The more obscure, the better. The research becomes a proof of one's dedication and niche expertise. Times hyperoptimism tax strategies, not the standard 401k and IRA, but advanced structures like the backdoor Roth megaconversion charitable remainder trust, while their taxable brokerage account holds a mere $5,000. Times over-engineered business models, the tech startup with a 100-page business plan seeking to disrupt the simple industry by adding blockchain, AI, and a subscription model to something that works fine as a one-time purchase. In each case, the complexity serves a psychological purpose. It separates the practitioner from the dumb herd. The problem is, while they are in the basement perfecting their Rube Goldberg machine, the herd is outside, quietly getting rich on simple grass. The brutal arithmetic of simplicity. Let's perform a thought experiment. Two investors, Sage and Clever, each have $10,000. Times Sage, the dummy, finds the idea of picking stocks stressful. She listens to a podcast that says, just buy VOO. She doesn't fully understand it, but it sounds easy. She puts her $10,000 in a Vanguard S&P 500 index fund, VOO, and sets up an automatic $500 forward/month investment. She then largely forgets about it, focusing on her career and family. Times Clever, the smart one, an index fund? That's for suckers who accept average returns. He spends his time researching, charting, and building a concentrated portfolio of 7 stocks he believes will crush the market. He trades actively, trying to time entries and exits based on news and technical indicators. He feels engaged, intelligent, and in control. Fast forward 20 years. Let's assume the market averages its historic 10% annual return. Sage's simple, automated strategy, with her consistent contributions, grows to over $380,000, and she has spent maybe 10 hours total managing it. Clever, despite his brilliance, faces the cold, mathematical truth that plagues nearly all active traders: he is unlikely to beat the market consistently. Even if he matches it, a huge if, his frequent trading incurs taxes and fees that drag down returns. If his sophisticated efforts cause him to underperform the market by just 2% annually, a common outcome, his portfolio might be worth 40% less than Sage's. He will have spent thousands of hours in stress and research to be significantly poorer. Complexity isn't just inefficient, it's expensive. It charges fees in time, stress, transaction costs, and opportunity cost. Simplicity is ruthlessly efficient. It compounds in silence. Cultivating the courage to be simple. How do you break the ego's addiction to complexity? 1. The grandma test. Can you explain your investment or business strategy to your grandmother in one simple sentence? If not, you might be succumbing to complexity for its own sake. I buy pieces of the 500 biggest American companies and hold them forever passes. I sell cash-secured puts on growth stocks with high 4 to collect theta decay while defining my risk fails. 2. Seek the boring, proven path first, before exploring frontier markets. Ask, have I maxed out my 401k match? Do I have an emergency fund? Is my debt under control? The boring foundations are where 95% of real wealth is built. The complex strategies are the decorative trim on the house, pointless if the foundation is crumbling. 3. Differentiate between complicated and complex. A complicated system has many moving parts but operates predictably. A car engine, a 60-year-old real estate depreciation schedule. It can be learned. A complex system has unpredictable, emergent outcomes, the stock market tomorrow, the viral spread of a meme. Stop trying to engineer complex systems. Instead, adopt simple, robust behaviors that work across all conditions, like consistent investing. 4. Adopt the one-sentence business plan. If you're starting something, force yourself to define it in one sentence. I help local restaurants get more 5-star Google reviews. This ruthless simplicity forces clarity on who you serve and what value you provide. Everything else is secondary. The humility of the wealthy gardener. True confidence in wealth building is not the flamboyant confidence of the Magichean, promising to pull a rabbit from a hat through sheer cleverness. It is the quiet, humble confidence of the gardener. The gardener has no illusions of controlling the sun or the rain. They understand the simple, timeless rules: plant good seeds, water consistently, pull weeds, be patient. The process is undramatic. The results are inevitable. The smart person's ego fears being ordinary. It wants a unique, intellectually satisfying story. But wealth does not care about your story. It responds to action, consistency, and the disciplined application of simple principles. The great irony is that by having the humility to follow the simple, dumb path, to be the gardener, you achieve something extraordinary: actual financial freedom. While the Magichean is endlessly tuning his apparatus, the gardener is harvesting fruit. Whose position would you rather be in? The most powerful financial tool is not a derivative or an algorithm. It is a principle so simple it can fit on an index card. Your mission is not to find a more complex card, but to have the courage to follow the one you already have. Your simplicity audit: look at your current financial strategy or a business idea you've been pondering. Run it through the grandma test. If it fails, strip it down. What is the absolute core, simple action or principle at its heart? Write that one sentence down. That is your true starting line. Chapter 3: Waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. In a forgotten workshop, a master watchmaker dreams of crafting the perfect timepiece. He has flawless designs, the finest tools, and a vision of a watch so precise it would measure the heartbeat of the universe. He waits for the perfect bar of steel, free of any microscopic flaw. He waits for a day when his hands are completely steady, his mind utterly clear. He waits for the alignment of the planets, which an old text suggests is auspicious for beginnings. Decades pass. The workshop is pristine, the tools unused. The perfect moment to begin never arrives, and the watch that could have been, that should have been, exists only in the fading blueprints of his mind. He dies a master of potential, a genius of the unbegun. This is the tyranny of perfect timing. It is the belief that success requires not just the right idea and the right effort, but a celestial alignment of market conditions, personal readiness, and global circumstance. For the analytical mind, timing is the ultimate variable to solve for. Yet, in the pursuit of wealth, it is the most dangerous idol to worship. The mirage of market bottoms and tops. The financial media survives by selling the myth of perfect timing. Its airwaves are filled with prophets declaring now is the time to buy, or the crash is coming, sell everything. For the smart investor, this creates a paralyzing noise. They study charts, looking for the elusive double bottom or the head and shoulders reversal. They wait for the Federal Reserve to signal a dovish pivot. They hold cash, poised to pounce, as the market climbs a wall of worry without them. Consider the historic recovery from the March 2020 COVID crash. The perfect moment to buy was, in hindsight, the 23rd of March, but on that day, the news was apocalyptic. The world was locking down. The smart move, based on information, was to wait, to see if it would get worse. The dumb move was to follow a simple principle: I invest every month, no matter what. Those who did saw the fastest doubling of their money in history. Those waiting for the all-clear signal bought in months later, at prices 30%, 50%, even 100% higher. History's lesson is brutal: time in the market beats timing the market. The perfect entry point is a fairy tale. The consistent participant is the one who wins. The three phantoms of perfect timing. We wait for three phantoms that forever recede before us. 1. The phantom of external conditions. I'll start my business when the economy is stronger. I'll buy a house when interest rates fall. I'll invest when this political uncertainty is over. External conditions are never perfect. Recessions create bargains and gaps in the market. High rates scare off competition. Uncertainty is the permanent background noise of existence. The dummy starts anyway, learning to navigate the current terrain, not the fantasy landscape of tomorrow. 2. The phantom of personal readiness. I'll launch my course when I have 2 more certifications. I'll start investing when I've saved $25,000. I'll write the book when the kids are older and I have a clear 6 months. Personal readiness is a shifting goalpost of our own creation. The extra certification becomes a prerequisite for another. The $25,000 feels insufficient without $50,000. Life's phases of calm are rare and brief. The dummy starts with the course outline, the first $100 investment, the rough draft written in 20-minute chunks before dawn. They become ready through the act of starting. 3. The phantom of complete knowledge. As discussed in Chapter 1, this is the belief that we must know everything before we begin. It is the most seductive phantom for the intelligent mind, disguising procrastination as prudence. The momentum principle, the physics of getting rich. Newton's first law applies to wealth. An object in motion tends to stay in motion. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. Starting now with whatever you have, however imperfectly, create momentum. Momentum is a magical force. It generates feedback, which creates learning, which builds confidence, which attracts opportunity. The dummy who starts a blog with 3 bad posts learns SEO from real traffic. The smart person, waiting to launch until they have 30 brilliant posts pre-written, learns nothing. Momentum turns the flywheel. Perfectionism keeps it locked. How to execute in the wrong time. 1. Embrace good enough timing. Define the worst-case scenario of acting now. If you can survive it, you have your green light. Ben's worst case was a slightly higher monthly payment. He could survive it. The potential upside was life-changing. That's a bet worth making. 2. Practice now, then. Thinking. Replace "I'll do X when Y happens" with "I'll do X now, and then I'll adapt when Y happens." I'll invest in this index fund now, and then I'll adjust my allocations if the market crashes. Action first, adjustment second. 3. See time as your most valuable asset. Not timing. The 25-year-old who starts investing $300 a month today will be far wealthier at 65 than the 35-year-old who starts investing $600 a month, even if the older investor is a market timing genius. The decade of compounding is an advantage no intelligence can replicate. You cannot get back lost time. 4. Reframe bad timing as a forging fire. Starting a business in a recession teaches frugality and true value creation. Buying a rental property when rates are high means less competition from amateurs. Difficult conditions create tougher, smarter operators. The perfect calm often breeds complacency. The courage of the imperfect beginner. The master watchmaker's tragedy was that he misunderstood his craft. A watch's perfection isn't born from a perfect beginning with perfect parts. It is achieved through a process of assembly, adjustment, regulation, and refinement. The first gear placed is always slightly out of true. That's the point. You place it, see how it interacts, and make the next one better. Wealth is built the same way. Your first investment will be suboptimal. Your first business offer will be clumsy. Your first property will have hidden flaws. This is not failure. This is the essential, unavoidable first step in the process of refinement. Stop waiting for the stars to align. They already have. They've aligned to give you this moment, with its unique set of imperfect conditions, which is the only moment you ever actually have to begin. Like the forge, pick up the rough steel. Start shaping it. The perfect time to start was yesterday. The second best time is right now, in all its gloriously imperfect reality. The market's timing is unpredictable. Your own timing is the only thing you control, and the most powerful time you can choose is now. Your now, then. Commitment. Identify one financial action you've been putting off, waiting for a better time. Write it down. Then, write down the now, the small, imperfect step you will take within 72 hours, and the then, how you will adapt if conditions change. Execute the now. The moment has arrived. Chapter 4. The Education Deception. Imagine you are given a beautiful, leather-bound guidebook to a familiar, cultivated garden. It details every named plant, the proper angles for pruning roses, and the history of the gravel on the path. You master this book, earning a diploma with honors in garden navigation. You are declared an expert. Then, you are dropped into an uncharted, wild forest with a single instruction: find the treasure. Your guidebook is useless. The plants are unnamed and overgrown. There is no path. The skills rewarded by your diploma, memorization, following instructions, seeking approval from authorities, are now hindrances. Meanwhile, someone else was dropped into the same forest without any training. They have no book to consult, so they immediately start experimenting, tasting non-poisonous berries, climbing a tree to scout, testing the direction of the river's flow. They are learning the real rules of this real environment. While you are lamenting the lack of proper signage, they are already moving toward the treasure. This is the education deception. It is the false belief that formal, accredited learning is the primary, or even a sufficient, path to wealth. For generations, we've been sold a formula: get good grades, get a good degree, get a good job, get security. This formula manufactures excellent employees. It is catastrophically ill-suited for creating owners, investors, and wealth builders. How schooling builds the employee mindset. The traditional education system is a brilliant factory for producing a specific kind of worker. It instills the very instincts that can keep you broke in the wealth creation game. 1. The cult of the right answer. In school, there is one correct answer to every question, located in the back of the book or the teacher's mind. Your job is to find it and repeat it. In wealth building, there are no answer keys. There are only hypotheses tested in the messy marketplace. That the student waits to be told what to do. The wealth builder must decide, often with incomplete data, and live with the consequences. 2. Risk aversion as a virtue. On a test, a wrong answer loses points. Failure is penalized. This conditions a deep-seated fear of being wrong. In the forest of wealth, wrong answers, failed products, bad investments, misguided partnerships are not failures, they are data. They are the most expensive and valuable tuition you will ever pay. The system teaches you to avoid mistakes. Wealth requires you to make them, learn from them cheaply, and iterate. 3. Deference to authority. The teacher, the professor, the textbook are the ultimate arbiters of truth. Your success is defined by pleasing them. This creates a psychological reliance on external validation and permission. But no professor will give you permission to quit your job. No textbook will validate your crazy business idea. Wealth building demands that you become your own authority, trusting your own judgment over the consensus. For the specialization trap, higher education pushes you deeper into a narrow silo: biologist, accountant, historian. This creates deep but fragile expertise. Wealth, however, is interdisciplinary and generalist. It requires basic knowledge of law, marketing, psychology, finance, and sales. The dummy isn't afraid to be a novice in all of them. The smart specialist often feels it's beneath them to learn the crass skill of selling, dooming their brilliant idea to obscurity. Credentials versus competence, the great mismatch. We have confused signaling with ability. A degree is a signal to an employer that you can endure a process, follow rules, and complete tasks. It is a filtering mechanism for hiring. It has little correlation with the ability to spot opportunity, manage cash flow, tolerate risk, or lead a venture. The wealth-building world does not care about your credentials. It answers only to one question: can you create value someone will pay for? A plumber with no college degree who owns a thriving 5-van operation understands this viscerally. A PhD in English literature, drowning in student debt and waiting for a tenure-track position that doesn't exist, has been tragically misled about what the market values. The autodidact's advantage: learning with purpose. The true wealth builder is an autodidact, a self-teacher. Their education is not a prepackaged curriculum but a targeted, just-in-time acquisition of skills to solve a concrete problem. Times problem-based learning. They don't take a general marketing course. They need to sell 50 units of their product. So they learn only the marketing needed to do that: how to write a Facebook ad, how to do a Google search for, how to get first 10 customers. The learning is immediately applied, tested, and solidified. Times the mentorship override. They bypass formal institutions to seek mentors, people who have actually done the thing they want to do. This is apprenticeship, not academia. It's learning how the forest actually works from someone who has found treasure, not from someone who has only studied maps of gardens. Times the library of the real world. Their textbooks are IRS publication 527, rental real estate, the terms of a vendor contract, the comment section on their first YouTube video, and the balance sheet of their own fledgling company. This knowledge is indelible because it is attached to sweat, fear, and real money. Re-educating yourself for wealth. If you feel the weight of the good student mindset holding you back, you must consciously re-educate yourself. Here's your new syllabus. 1. Replace "am I right?" with "did it work?" Shift your metric from theoretical correctness to empirical results. Let the market grade you, not a professor. 2. Seek just-in-time knowledge, not just in case. Stop hoarding knowledge for a hypothetical future. Learn only what you need for the next immediate step. Need to form an LLC? Learn that now. Don't take a full semester course on business law. 3. Pursue informal credentials. Replace the pursuit of degrees with the pursuit of proof. Build a portfolio, a track record, a client list, a public body of work. These are the credentials that matter in the forest. 4. Practice decision autonomy. Start making small, irreversible decisions without asking for permission. Buy a small asset. Launch a small offer. Get used to the feeling of being the ultimate authority on your own journey. The graduation no one talks about. The most important graduation of your life is not from an institution. It is the moment you graduate from the mindset of a student to the mindset of a practitioner. It is the day you stop looking for the teacher's approval and start looking for the customer's validation. It is the day you trade the safety of the syllabus for the freedom and terror of the blank page. Your formal education may have given you tools, but it likely built the walls of a very comfortable cage. The treasure is outside the walls, in the wild, uncharted forest. You don't need a better map of the cage. You need the courage to step into the unknown and start learning the rules of the real world, one experiment, one failure, one small victory at a time. The certified guide, clutching his garden book, will stay where it's safe. The hungry explorer, with empty hands and keen eyes, will find the gold. The world does not pay you for what you know. It pays you for what you do with what you know, and for the problems you solve for others. Your deprogramming assignment: identify one good student habit that is holding you back, for example, waiting for permission, fearing wrong answers, over-researching. This week, deliberately break it with a small, tangible act. If you fear being wrong, make a small, reversible financial decision without exhaustive research. If you seek permission, launch something small without telling anyone until it's done. File your own report card, based on action taken, not on praise received. Chapter 5: The Power of Simple, Unshakable Belief. A deep chasm splits a village from fertile land. For generations, the village elders, engineers, geologists, and physicists have gathered at the cliff's edge. They draft elegant blueprints for suspension bridges, calculate load-bearing stresses under various wind conditions, and debate the optimal alloy for the cables. Their models are brilliant, their knowledge profound. The bridge, however, remains unbuilt. The complexity is paralyzing, the cost of failure too grim to contemplate. One day, a carpenter with no formal engineering training walks up. He looks at the chasm, then at the forest, and says, "I can build a bridge." The elders scoff. They barrage him with questions about tensile strength and harmonic resonance. He nods politely and says, "I build things." They stand up. This will, too. He doesn't have a perfect plan. He has a simple, unshakable belief: a bridge can be built here. He starts felling trees. His first attempt, a simple rope and plank affair, sways dangerously and is only good for transporting light tools. The elders gather to say, "I told you so." He nods, learns, and builds a stronger, wider version. It fails under the weight of the first cow. He studies the brake, learns about weight distribution, and builds again. Each iteration is ugly, pragmatic, and gets more goods across than the last. Within a year, he has a working, if inelegant, timber bridge. The village's wealth blossoms. The elders are still refining their blueprints for the perfect, unbuilt bridge. The carpenter didn't have genius. He had something far more powerful for wealth creation: a simple, unshakable belief, SUB. It is the foundational force that allows ordinary people to attempt extraordinary things. It is not blind faith, but a deep, almost naive conviction that the desired outcome is possible and that they are capable of figuring it out along the way. The anatomy of an SUB. This belief is not about the intricacies of how. It's about the fundamental certainty of whether. It's the operating system that runs in the background, quiet and steady, while the smart person's mind is crashing from error messages of doubt. Times it is precognitive, it exists before the spreadsheets, before the business plan. It's the gut feeling that whispers, "There's a way," before the brain can articulate the object irons. It's the dummy's answer to the question, "Can this work?" An immediate yes, where the smart person's answer is, "Let me analyze." Times it is antifragile, it is not deterred by setbacks, it is fueled by them. To the SUB, a failure is not proof of impossibility. It is a puzzle piece, a clue revealing what doesn't work, bringing you one step closer to what does. The smart person sees a collapsed bridge as a validation of their fear. The dummy sees it as a free lesson in structural engineering. Times it focuses on the destination, not the map. The belief is in reaching the other side of the chasm. The map, the specific business model, investment strategy, or career path, is flexible. If one path is blocked, the S.U.B. driven person simply finds another route. The smart person, married to their perfect map, quits when the path is blocked. Why intelligence can erode belief. Paradoxically, high intelligence can be a corrosive force against SUB. The intelligent mind is trained to see complexity, nuance, and risk. It is a master of generating yes, but scenarios. Times yes, but what about a recession? Times yes, but what if a competitor does it better? Times yes, but I don't have the right degree /connections /experience. Each but is a logical, intelligent objection. Cumulatively, they form an impregnable wall of reasons not to proceed. The intellect, in its mission to protect you from looking foolish, ends up protecting you from all possibility of success. It convinces you that the prudent, intelligent choice is to wait, to research more, to stay safe on your side of the chasm. The dummy's mind doesn't generate these object irons with the same force, or it simply dismisses them with a shrug, "Maybe. We'll deal with that if it happens." This isn't stupidity. It's a form of cognitive discipline, a voluntary filter that allows the signal of belief to overpower the noise of doubt. Cultivating your own simple, unshakable belief. You are not born with an SUB. You can build it. It is a muscle to be strengthened. Start with a micro-belief. You don't need to believe you'll build a billion-dollar company. Start with a belief you can test immediately. I believe I can find one person to pay me $100 for this service this month. This is small enough to be plausible, big enough to require action. Prove it to yourself. Success with micro-beliefs builds evidence for larger ones. 2. Create an evidence log, not a business plan. Instead of a static plan, keep a running log of small wins and learned lessons. Did you get a positive comment on your idea? Log it. Did you successfully complete a small, related task? Log it. This log becomes the tangible proof that fuels your belief, counteracting the brain's natural negativity bias. 3. Practice what if it works. Thinking. Spend as much time visualizing the steps of success as you do catastrophizing about failure. Literally write out the narrative, what if this works? First, I would, then I could. This isn't magical thinking, it's scenario planning for the positive outcome, making it feel more concrete and achievable. For accurate your inputs, the smart person seeks out all criticism to strengthen their plan. The SUB builder knows when to stop. Protect your belief in its fragile early stages. Limit time with professional skeptics and devil's advocates. Immerse yourself in stories of people who have done similar things. You are not ignoring reality, you are strategically feeding the mindset you need to alter it. 5. Separate belief in outcome from attachment to method. Your belief must be, I will build a profitable bridge. Not, I will build my specific bridge design from the 3rd of May blueprints. The first empowers you to adapt. The second sets you up for despair when the first design fails. The alchemy of belief into reality, and SUB is the catalyst in the alchemy of wealth creation. It turns the base metal of an idea into the gold of action. Action generates feedback, feedback generates competence, and competence generates results. The belief itself becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because it is the only force strong enough to propel you through the inevitable valley of despair that follows any exciting beginning. The elders at the chasm had knowledge. The carpenter had belief. Knowledge without belief is a library of unread blueprints. Belief, even with imperfect knowledge, is a hammer in hand, ready to build. In the economy of achievement, belief is not a bonus, it is the currency. The smart person tries to pay for everything with the coins of analysis. The dummy knows some doors only open with the gold of conviction. What is your bridge? And what would you start building today if you simply allowed yourself to believe, against all smart advice, that you could? Doubt is the tax that intelligence levies on ambition. Belief is the rebel lion that refuses to pay it. Your SUB forge, write down one wealth-building goal. Below it, write the headline of your simple, unshakable belief about it. It must be a short, declarative sentence in the present tense, as if it's already true. For example, not "I hope to be a good investor, but I am capable of building wealth through smart investments." Now, list 3 pieces of small, existing evidence that support this belief, however flimsy. For example, "I balanced my budget last month, I learned one new thing about stocks, I am a quick learner." This is the foundation. Now, act as if the belief is true. The evidence will follow. Chapter 6: Action is Intelligence. For centuries, 2 schools of thought competed on how to traverse the open sea. The astronomers studied the heavens. From the safety of their observatories, they plotted the courses of stars, calculated celestial angles, and drew exquisite charts of theoretical routes. Their knowledge was vast, their models elegant. They could tell you precisely where you should be, based on the perfect mathematics of the cosmos. The navigators, however, were on the ships. They had crude tools, a compass, a lead line to test depth, a log to estimate speed. They couldn't explain the physics of ocean currents, but they could feel the ship being pulled off course. They didn't have perfect star charts, but they could read the color of the water and the flight of birds to sense land. When a storm hit, the astronomers' perfect charts were useless. The navigator dropped sails, adjusted the rudder, and fought the waves directly, learning the true nature of the sea with every pitch and roll. Who would you trust to get you across the ocean? In the journey to wealth, the smart person is the astronomer. The dummy is the navigator. One seeks perfect understanding before moving. The other understands that intelligence is not a stockpile of preloaded knowledge, but a real-time feedback loop generated by action. The myth of preparatory intelligence. Our culture glorifies preparatory intelligence, the ability to learn, analyze, and plan in a vacuum. We believe that if we just read enough books, take enough courses, and build enough models, we will be ready and success will be a smooth, linear outcome of our preparation. This is a fantasy. Wealth is not built in the controlled conditions of a classroom or a spreadsheet. It is built in a chaotic, dynamic, and ruthlessly pragmatic marketplace. The intelligence that matters here is not preparatory, it is applied intelligence, and it can only be gained one way, by doing the thing. The learning pyramid. Why doing Trump studying? Consider a simple model of how we internalize competence. 1 lecture/reading, 5% retention. You read a book on real estate investing. You know the theory. 2 discussion/research, 10% you talk about it, analyze markets online. 3 practice by doing, 75% you make an offer on a property. You negotiate with a seller. You run the numbers with real mortgage rates. For teaching others/immediate application, 90% you manage the property, deal with a leak, find a tenant. You explain your system to a partner. The smart person gets stuck between levels 1 and 2, mistaking the accumulation of information for the acquisition of skill. The dummy, by virtue of acting, catapults to levels 3 and 4. They are not less intelligent, they are simply using a far more efficient learning technology. The 3 forms of intelligence you can't get from a book. When you act, you gain forms of intelligence that are inaccessible to the pure analyst. 1 procedural intelligence, that how this is the muscle memory of a process. You can read 50 articles on how to close a sale, but you only understand the texture of a sales call, the pauses, the unspoken object irons, the timing of the ask, when you've done it 50 times. The dummy salesperson with 100 calls under their belt is more intelligent about selling than the smart MBA who has studied 100 case studies. 2 contextual intelligence, that when and where theory is generic, reality is specific. A book on marketing will tell you about target demographics. Running a Facebook ad for your specific $29 cat toy will teach you that women aged 45 to 65 in suburban Texas are your true buyers, something no book could ever tell you. This is intelligence that is extracted from the world, not implanted from a theory. 3. Relational intelligence, that who you cannot the eyes trust. You cannot spreadsheet a partnership. Action forces you into the human arena. You learn which suppliers are reliable, which clients are a nightmare, which mentors give blunt, useful feedback. This network of lived relationships becomes your most valuable asset, and it is built purely through action and reciprocity. The action flywheel, how doing creates its own momentum. Action creates a self-reinforcing cycle that pure thought cannot match. 1. Action result, or failure you do something. Anything happens. 2. Result feedback, the world gives you data. This is the most valuable information in existence. 3. Feedback learning, you adjust your mental model. 4. Learning new, smarter action, you act again, with slightly upgraded intelligence. 5. Repeat. Each cycle of the flywheel makes you more intelligently connected to reality. The person stuck in analysis is outside the flywheel, watching it spin, wondering why they can't get it started. The secret is, you start it with a push, not a blueprint. How to make action your primary learning tool. 1. Adopt the minimum viable action (MVA) framework for any goal. Define the smallest, cheapest, fastest action that will generate real-world feedback. Want to be a writer? Don't plan a book. Publish a 300-word post online today. Want to invest? Don't research for 6 months. Buy one share of a company you like and watch it. 2. Schedule action sprints, not research phases. Block time for doing, not studying. This Saturday from 9 to 12, I will build the first version of my website's landing page, not I will research web design. 3. Measure in units of action, not units of knowledge. Track your progress by what you've done, not what you've consumed. This week, made 5 sales calls, drafted 1 contract, negotiated with 1 vendor. This shifts your identity from eternal student to practitioner. For embrace the wrong action. A wrong action that teaches you something is infinitely more valuable than no action. Reframe failure as successfully discovering a path that doesn't work, a critical piece of navigation data. The navigator's creed. The intelligence of the navigator is humble, adaptive, and rooted in sensory reality. They don't deny the value of the stars theory, but they know the stars are useless if you can't feel the wind in your sails or the current under your keel. Stop trying to calculate your way to a destination you've never seen from a port you've never left. Untie the boat. Point it in a general direction. Start sailing. You will learn about the sea and about your own capability in the first hour out of the harbor in ways a lifetime of cartography could never teach you. The most intelligent thing you can do is to be intelligently engaged with reality, and the only entry ticket to that engagement is action. Knowledge tells you a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom tells you not to put it in a fruit salad. But only action, making the salsa, teaches you how much cilantro to add, who will buy it, and for what price. Your action sprint. Identify one area where you've been stuck in astronomer mode, researching, planning, preparing. Now, design your minimum viable action, MVA. It must be so small that it's almost embarrassing, and it must be completable within 48 hours. Example, not start a business, but email 3 people in my network and ask for their blunt feedback on my 1-sentence business idea. Commit to it, then observe the feedback. That feedback is your first, true piece of navigational data. Record it. Your intelligence has just increased. Chapter 7, Leveraging Ignorance of Impossibility. In the late 19th century, the question of powered human flight was the domain of brilliant scientists and engineers, the smartest men in the room. They published dense papers on aerodynamics, built complex models, and concluded, with mathematical certainty, that a machine heavier than air could not sustain controlled flight. The physics, they declared, was impossible. Meanwhile, in a bicycle shop in Ohio, 2 brothers who had never finished high school, Wilbur and Orville Wright, approached the problem with the mindset of mechanics. They weren't burdened by the academic consensus of impossibility. They saw it as a series of mechanical problems to solve: balance, lift, propulsion. They didn't know it couldn't be done, so they focused on how it might be done. They tested wing shapes in a homemade wind tunnel. They broke that insoluble problem into small, solvable ones. In 1903, they flew. The Wright brothers possessed a profound advantage: beneficial ignorance. They were ignorant not of mechanics or effort, but of the entrenched, sophisticated belief in impossibility. That ignorance was a shield, protecting them from the paralyzing weight of known limits. In the realm of wealth creation, this same principle operates daily. Not knowing the rules, the barriers, or the proper way can be the ultimate competitive edge. The tyranny of the known world. The smart person operates within a framework of received wisdom. They know the industry benchmarks, the average failure rates, the conventional career ladder, the prudent rate of return. This knowledge creates invisible fences. It tells them what is realistic, what is appropriate, and what is foolish to even attempt. Times you need a 20% down payment to buy a house. Tell that to someone using an FHA loan with 3.5% down. Times starting a business requires a business plan and venture capital. Tell that to the solo entrepreneur funding everything on a credit card and pre-orders. Times you can't compete with Amazon/Walmart/ the big guys. Tell that to the niche direct-to-consumer brand with a cult following. This knowledge isn't wrong, per se. It's a map of the existing territory, but wealth is rarely found by following the well-worn paths on the map. It's found by sketching in the blank spaces. The dummy, lacking the map, isn't constrained by its borders. They wander into the blank space and often find that the reported dragons aren't there, or are smaller than advertised. How ignorance fuels action and innovation. Beneficial ignorance works in three powerful ways. 1. It eliminates preemptive surrender. The smart person, seeing a mountain of established competitors and high barriers to entry, often logically decides not to climb. The dummy, not perceiving the mountain as insurmountable, or perhaps not even seeing its full scale, starts hiking. By the time they realize how steep it is, they are already halfway up, having developed climbing skills the person at base camp never will. 2. It fosters unconventional solutions. When you don't know the standard operating procedure, you're forced to invent your own. A classic example, a young Richard Branson, wanting to start a student magazine, didn't know how to get advertising. So he cold called companies from a phone booth, pretending to be the magazine's publisher from the finished product he envisioned. He sold ads for a magazine that didn't exist yet. A smart business student would have known you need a media kit, circulation numbers, and a sample issue first. Branson's ignorance of the rules allowed him to create a new one. 3. It reduces the cost of experimentation. Knowing how hard something should be creates psychological friction. The dummy approaches a task with lower emotional stakes. Trying and failing doesn't feel like disproving an expert, it just feels like trying something that didn't work. This lower emotional cost encourages more experiments, and more experiments lead to more discoveries. Cultivating strategic ignorance. You cannot become literally ignorant again, but you can cultivate the mindset of beneficial ignorance. 1. Practice beginner's mind. Shushing consciously approach problems as if for the first time. Ask foundational, dumb questions. Why does it have to be done this way? Who says this is the only path? What if we ignored this constraint? This strips away layers of assumed difficulty. 2. Limit your exposure to reality checks. In the early, fragile stages of an idea, avoid people whose primary role is to point out obstacles. Their knowledge is valid, but it's poison to nascent belief. Seek instead possibility amplifiers, people who ask, how could we, not but what about? 3. Break the monolithic problem into tiny experiments. Ignorance of the whole mountain is fine if you're just trying to climb the first 10-foot rock face. Don't try to solve, how do I build $1 million business? Ask, how do I make my first $100? The small experiment is immune to theories of impossibility. Study the history of fools. Make a habit of reading about people who succeeded precisely because they didn't know the rules. The college dropouts who built tech empires, the immigrants who built businesses in industries they didn't understand, the artists who broke all conventions. Normalize the path of the ignorant pioneer. The wisdom of knowing what not to know. The ultimate sophistication is not in knowing everything, but in discerning what knowledge is useful and what is a hindrance. The smart person often cannot tell the difference. They assume all knowledge is power, but some knowledge is a prison. The wealth builder must be a skilled editor of their own mind. They must be willing to temporarily shelve expert consensus and industry standards in order to preserve the creative space needed for a naive, powerful question. What if I just What if I just asked for the sale? What if I just bought the property? What if I just launched the website? The Wright brothers didn't overturn physics. They simply didn't let the physics of their day dictate their actions. They let their actions reveal new physics. Your journey to wealth will be filled with people who know exactly why you will fail. The great advantage of the dummy is that they don't know enough to listen. They are too busy building, in their beneficial ignorance, the very thing that was supposed to be impossible. The cage is made of bars called common knowledge, best practices, and that's not how it's done. The key is often a simple question you were told was too naive to ask. Your ignorance audit: identify one financial or business goal. Now, list 3 accepted truths or common barriers associated with it. For example, you need a huge email list to launch a product. You need perfect credit to get a loan. That market is too saturated. For one of these truths, design a tiny experiment that deliberately ignores it. How could you test a small version of your goal as if that barrier didn't exist? The goal of the experiment is not to succeed grandly, but to discover what part of the impossible is actually just a story. Chapter 8: The Focus Factor. One simple system. In a kingdom under siege, the royal council convened. The strategist, a man of immense learning, unfurled a map covered in arrows, feints, and layered contingencies. He spoke of alliances with distant nations, of sowing discord within the enemy's ranks, of complex embargoes and diplomatic gambits. His plan was a masterpiece of interconnected maneuvers. It was also hopelessly fragile, requiring flawless execution from dozens of unreliable actors. It was a web of such complexity that a single broken thread would unravel it all. Outside the castle walls, the stonemason had one job: repair the breach in the northern wall. He did not study grand strategy. He had one system: find stone, shape stone, set stone, mortar stone, repeat. While the council debated, he worked. His focus was absolute, his process simple and repeatable. He didn't need to understand the enemy's battle formations. He understood the grain of granite and the consistency of lime mortar. Day by day, the breach closed. The kingdom's survival, in the end, hinged not on the brilliant, sprawling strategy, but on the relentless, focused application of one simple system. In the siege for financial freedom, the smart person is the strategist. The dummy is the stonemason. One seeks to outmaneuver the market with a portfolio of brilliant, interlocking strategies. The other picks one section of wall and starts laying bricks. The scattergun fallacy of the smart investor. The intelligent mind, afraid of missing out and confident in its ability to manage complexity, often falls victim to the scattergun fallacy. This is the belief that diversification doesn't just apply to assets, but to strategies, and that more simultaneous approaches will yield better results. You see it everywhere. Times the person who day trades crypto while trying to wholesale real estate, while launching a dropshipping store, while studying for their Series 7 exam to become a financial advisor. Times the investor whose portfolio is a chaotic mix of individual tech stocks, gold ETFs, leveraged real estate syndications, a cryptocurrency mining rig, and a vintage car they are flipping. Each of these might be a valid path. Together, they are a guarantee of mediocrity. The smart person's attention, capital, and mental energy are fragmented across a dozen fronts. They become a general without an army, issuing commands in all directions and advancing nowhere. They are perpetually in the startup phase of everything, mastering nothing. The immense power of the single system in this context is not a rigid, robotic process. It is a repeatable framework for making decisions and taking action within a defined domain. It is the stonemason's rule of thumb for shaping stone. It is the dummy's singular lane. The power of focusing on one simple system is profound. One compounding of skill and knowledge. Every action you take deepens your expertise within that single system. The 100th rental property you analyze is light years easier than the first, because you've built a neural framework for it. You recognize patterns, pitfalls, and opportunities instantly. This compound expertise creates a massive, unassailable advantage over the scattered dabbler. 2. Reduction of decision fatigue. You have already made the big, hard decisions. Your system dictates the rules. I only buy properties within 20 minutes of my house with a cash-on-cash return over 8%. I only publish content on topic X every Tuesday and Thursday. This eliminates 90% of daily choices, freeing your mental RAM for execution, not deliberation. 3. The creation of a moat through simplicity. Your singular focus becomes your brand and your defense. You are the condo guy in your city. You are the Shopify expert for leatherworkers. This clarity attracts the right opportunities, partners, and clients to you. It repels the noise. People know what you do. The scattered strategist is a blur, impossible to define, recommend, or trust as an authority. For scalability and automation, a single, well-defined system can be scaled, documented, and eventually delegated. You can hire an assistant who follows your property analysis checklist. You can build templates for your client onboarding process. You can't automate chaos. You can automate a system. How to find and commit to your one simple system. 1. The 80-20 exploration, then the 100-0 commitment. It's wise to sample different areas, the 20% of exploration that gives you 80% of the insight. But set a hard deadline. After a defined period of exploration, for example, 3 months, you must choose one lane and commit to it exclusively for a minimum period, for example, 2 years. No side quests. 2. Define your system's non-negotiables. A system needs constraints. Write down the 3 to 5 core rules of your chosen wealth path. For a rental property system, it might be 1. Minimum $200/month cash flow per door. 2. Within 1 hour drive. 3. Built after 1980. 4. Price under 80% of neighborhood median. These rules are your rails. They keep you from derailing into distraction. 3. Measure depth, not breadth. Stop tracking how many different things you're involved in. Start tracking your mastery within your system. Key metrics become number of cycles completed, deals closed, products shipped, clients served, efficiency gains, time forward/cost per cycle, and profitability per cycle. Go deeper, not wider. For a build a not to-do list, this is your most powerful tool. Actively list the tempting, smart diversions you will refuse. I will not research cryptocurrency. I will not start a YouTube channel on a different topic. I will not invest in a new asset class until I have 10 units in my current one. Guard your focus ruthlessly. The victory of monotony. The world celebrates the polymath, the Renaissance person with a dazzling array of skills. But wealth, more often than not, is built by the monomaniac, the person obsessed with one thing, done exceptionally well, repeated 10,000 times. It is not glamorous. The stonemason's day is monotonous. Find, shape, set, mortar, repeat. But monotony, when applied to a coherent system, creates monuments. It builds walls that withstand sieges. It compounds into something unshakable. While the strategist is redrawing his complex maps, the stonemason has already fortified the kingdom. One has a brilliant theory of defense. The other has a solid wall. What is your wall? What is the one, simple system you can commit to, not for a week, but 4 years, until you have built something so strong, so tall, and so valuable that it changes your life and the lives of those behind it? Choose your stone. Pick up your trowel. The power is not in doing everything, but in doing one thing until nothing can stop you. A river carves a canyon not by its power, but by its persistence in one place. Your financial freedom will be carved the same way. Your system forge. If you had to commit to one and only one wealth building system for the next 24 months, what would it be? Not a goal like be rich, but a repeatable process like buy and hold one local cash flowing property every 9 months or build and sell one digital product per quarter. Write down its 3 core rules. Now, write your not to do list, the 3 most tempting diversions you must refuse to let in. Post these where you can see them. Your focus is now your most valuable asset. Protect it. Chapter 9, Execution over Genius. In a city council chamber, 2 proposals are presented for a new public library. The architect's presentation is breathtaking. He unveils renderings of a structure that seems to defy physics, a swirling helix of glass and light, with green roofs, passive solar design, and interactive media walls. He speaks poetically of curating spaces for the human spirit and reimagining the civic sphere. His genius is undeniable. The vision is revolutionary. His blueprints are a work of art. He is awarded the commission. Then, the contractor is hired. He looks at the beautiful, impossible blueprints and sighs. His world is not one of vision, but of sequence. He thinks in schedules, supply chains, union rules, and load-bearing calculations. He knows the architect's floating cantilever will require a foundation 3 times deeper than planned. The stunning all-glass facade will turn the reading rooms into greenhouses. One by one, through a process of brutal pragmatism, he translates the ethereal vision into buildable components. He makes 1,000 unglamorous decisions, substituting a less perfect but available material, rerouting plumbing to avoid a bedrock seam, working through rain and supply delays. The final building, when it opens, is magnificent, but it is not the flawless vision from the renderings. It is the executed version. It is real. The architect's genius provided the direction. The contractor's execution built the library. In the project of building wealth, the smart person wants to be the architect. The dummy understands that the real money and the real power lies in being the contractor. The seduction of the idea phase, the beginning, is intoxicating. The blank slate, the grand vision, the business plan that projects millions, the investment thesis that feels divinely inspired. This is the realm of pure intellect, unsullied by reality. It's where the smart person feels most alive and most validated. They can talk for hours about market gaps, disruptive potential, and elegant financial models. Execution, by contrast, is a grind. It is unsexy, repetitive, and filled with friction. It's answering customer service emails at midnight. It's reconciling receipts. It's following up for the 10th time with a late-paying client. It's painting the rental property yourself on a Saturday. It's the 99% of the work that has no audience and earns no applause. The smart mind, addicted to the dopamine hit of novel problem-solving and intellectual validation, often flees the grind. It mistakes the map for the territory. It believes that because the idea is brilliant, success is inevitable. This is the fatal error. The 80-20 rule of wealth creation. Forget the Pareto principle as it's usually applied. In wealth building, the ratio is even more stark. Times 20% is strategy and planning. This is the architect's work. It is necessary. A bad plan executed well will fail, but a brilliant plan is worthless on its own. Times 80% is relentless, uninspired execution. This is the contractor's work. Showing up every day and doing the things that move the needle, whether you feel like it or not. It is the discipline to do the boring, hard, or uncomfortable task today that will pay off in 6 months or 6 years. The dummy may start with a mediocre plan, but through relentless execution, they gather real-world data, adapt, and their plan evolves into something workable. The genius with the flawless plan who cannot execute is left with a museum of beautiful, useless blueprints. Why execution is the true differentiator. 1. Execution creates luck. The world calls it luck when preparation meets opportunity. Execution is preparation. The landlord who has meticulously maintained her properties and screened tenants is lucky when a hot housing market doubles her equity. The blogger who has published weekly for 3 years is lucky when a post goes viral. Luck is the public flowering of invisible, executed work. 2. Execution builds unfakeable credibility. You can fake knowledge. You can fake a vision. You cannot fake a shipped product, a closed deal, or a 10-year investment track record. Execution leaves a trail of evidence that builds trust with partners, customers, and yourself. 3. Execution is a forge for character. Strategy challenges your mind. Execution challenges your will. It teaches perseverance, resilience, and grit. It forces you to confront your own laziness, fear, and excuses. The person who has executed their way through problems develops a quiet, unshakable confidence that no theorist can match. For execution closes the knowing-doing gap. This is the Grand Canyon of personal development. Millions know they should invest early, start a side hustle, or live below their means. Almost none do it with consistency. Execution is the bridge across that gap. How to cultivate an execution mindset. 1. Measure outputs, not intellectual activity. Stop counting hours spent researching or planning. Start measuring tangible outputs, words written, calls made, offers submitted, code committed, units sold. Your worth is in your output, not your contemplation. 2. The daily pour principle. Wealth is built like a coral reef by tiny, consistent deposits. Commit to a non-negotiable daily action that moves your core system forward, no matter how small. 1 property analysis, 1 sales call, 1 investment into your portfolio. The daily pour compounds into an ocean. 3. Embrace good enough and ship. Perfection is the enemy of execution. Set a deadline and ship the product, publish the post, make the offer. Version 1.0 will be flawed. You will fix it in version 1.1, but version 0.9, trapped on your hard drive, is worth nothing. 4. Focus on the next physical action. When overwhelmed, ask, what is the very next physical thing I can do? Not grow my business, but email the supplier for a quote. This reduces psychological friction and creates momentum. 5. Build a personal culture of done. Celebrate completion, not just conception. Create rituals around finishing things. The dummy celebrates closing a deal, shipping a product, hitting publish. The smart person celebrates having a clever idea. Reinforce the identity of a finisher. The contractor's triumph history is written by the executors. We remember the generals who won the battles, not the tacticians who designed the perfect war game that was never played. The world is not changed by ideas alone. It is changed by ideas that are shipped, built, deployed, and scaled. Your genius IQ is a tool. Your ability to execute is the craftsman who wields it. A master craftsman with simple tools can build a palace. A genius with no follow-through will only ever design one. Stop waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect partner, the perfect plan. Pick up your tools, however crude, and start building the most important thing, a track record of getting things done. In the ledger of wealth, a single line entry for completed is worth 1,000 entries for planned. Be the contractor. Break ground today. A mediocre plan executed with violent consistency will always outperform a brilliant plan that lives only in PowerPoint. The market does not grade your deck, it grades your results. Your execution pact. Identify the one project or goal that has been stuck in architect mode. Define the minimum viable product, MVP, the simplest, shippable version of it. Now, list the next 5 physical actions required to get that MVP out the door. They must be concrete and small. Your goal is not perfection. Your goal is to move from the realm of ideas to the realm of executed reality. Start with action 1. Now, start today.